website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And we're back! Jazz hands, jazz hands, jazz hands! Welcome back to Dave and Mackie's Shiny Side Out. This is Listener Funded Radio, so if you can, please donate. If you can't, please tell people about the station. And if you can donate, any currency is welcome, including crypto. And your generosity keeps the electrons flowing, which is important, I think, if you like what you're hearing, either from us or our other many talented hosts. We are, in fact, going to continue talking about mind control today and talk about mind control for quite some time into the future. Just a quick recap. Mind control, right? I think we can all agree that it is now all pervasive and most of us are under its spell. Mm-hmm. Not me, says you. Oh, yes, you too. Advertising is the most insidious form of mind control. Subliminal messaging. You don't even know it's coming your way. You're not even, I mean, have you ever asked yourself why you buy a certain brand or why you like a certain thing or you buy a certain kind of snack food or whatever it might be?
Those tomatoes
why?
Sure are shiny.
Oh, they're shinier than that. Exactly, right? So you ask yourself, well, why is that? And the answer is, well, you may genuinely like whatever it is that you're buying. You have developed a lifelong, affinity toward it. Like I like
not the sugar or the MSG. It's
nonsense. No, but while most illegal addictive substances have been removed from our food, as far as we know. I'm talking about, cocaine and Coca-Cola, but there are other things as well. Other addictive substances are still there, such as sugar, etc. No, but if you've got a variety of different sugary treats, why do you choose the sugary treat that you choose? Why is it that one? Why that one? Right? And then the answer usually is it's advertising, right? When you first try it and you go, oh, this is great, right? And there's always a certain image associated with it. Anyway. That's we discussed this, but the point is that mind control is everywhere. It's all pervasive. You cannot get away from it. But we've also now asked ourselves, well, how bad is it? Oh. Right? And the answer is very bad. That's the answer. The technologies that exist, and we've gone through them, and there are many more, by the way. Certainly the ones that aren't officially listed as patents. The technology to even directly influence you by beaming. I know this is all very tinfoil heady, I get it. But beaming some messages into your brain or changing your alpha or beta waves or any brainwave activity, really. That can all be done. We looked at Wi-Fi routers, as you might recall,
right,
that can be used for that purpose. Terrifying. Terrifying is what it is. And nonetheless, here we are. This is where we're at. With now MK Ultra was trying to remake people, not just control the mind, but you take somebody, all right? Am I looking to my left or my right, Dave? Take
point again. Point one side. No, one side only. That's where I am.
Okay. Taking Dave's head and emptying it.
Yeah.
And putting all whatever. Oh, here we go. Put that here, Dave. Put all that in there.
That feels.
And
better.
I feel so free. That's where we're at. We can actually do that. We can actually do that.
Do you remember that the CIA had confessed to nudging people?
Yeah. Yes.
It's a coercive way of being able to non-coercively do it. They can make anyone do anything they want. Social media and the algorithms around how we are shown posts, what the picture is in the post, how we can make it an emotional connection that they can use later, for instance. All the Trump derangement syndrome, the TDS people, were initiated to hate him through the news stories that came out about him and the sexual harassment, which ended up going nowhere. Then the Stormy Daniels thing. Everyone just saw him, who was nudged emotionally through the original story about how it restricted their ability to protect themselves from him, then became immediately emotionally responsive to his name. Just the name Trump. And suddenly someone can show on a lie detector an emotional response just to the word. Like, that's so powerful that you can do that. But social media, I remember seeing posts from friends of mine that they never posted. It looked like it came from a known friend of mine, and I talked to them about it. I remember seeing, I used to have a bunch of conspiracy stuff in my Facebook feed, for instance, and now it's all motor cars. Not because of what it nudged me into an obsession. It's what it did. I know I've stood in front of the tomatoes and said that phrase. They do look really red. And I go, where did that come from? And it was like my subconscious was saying the words and I was listening to myself say it. But I wasn't paying attention to that or anything else. The music you hear in the store is all intentionally there to have an emotional reaction and is supportive of you shopping. The big data on being in a shopping center and what music they play to what sales have eventuated is extremely powerful.
Yes, it is.
Let alone the subliminals that they could be putting in there. All the things they could do for you, not just making you comfortable, but what songs contain what words. I think it's really, really sad. But where we're at the moment with the control of media that is coming at us is a big switch away, Mekki, from newspapers and television.
It is. We saw the programming, and this is sort of Mind Control 101. What we saw was initially school. In school, you're indoctrinated, right? Religion as well, indoctrinated, right? Again, your mind is, sent down a certain pathway, irrespective of, which schooling system. It's a certain pathway you go in. Military service, same thing. They break it down to build you up because most people, surprisingly, Dave, don't like to kill other people. They just don't like it. Right? So you have to really change someone's psychology. And I said before, there are 3 types of people that go to war. I'm not going to go into it again. And there's 3 types that come back. But ultimately, these are primitive forms of mind control, involving a lot of direct intervention, a lot of effort, and a lot it takes a lot of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, and then MK Ultra and even previously, I mean, when torture was used or duress, etc., to change someone's mind or to convert them during the Inquisition, essentially, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, again, a lot of effort, though, right? And even the MK Ultra stuff, the drugs, you get the dosage right, you got that. It wasn't easy. In my opinion, it wasn't easy to break, remake, control someone's mind, compartmentalize through trauma.
Yeah, so also, they knew that it was happening to them.
Yeah, well, there's that. We are living in a much more clever age, right? Mm-hmm. Where we have given over a lot of our attention, which is critical for this, to devices. There you go. That's the one. And these devices do suck us in completely. And any screen, by the way, it doesn't have to be a telephone; it could be any screen really that you're interacting with. And we have now studies that show that electronic addiction is a thing, which is worse than heroin addiction, right? So you take someone's let's take the phone because it's the most pervasive, right? If you take someone's phone away, there will be withdrawal symptoms. Okay.
Yeah.
And horrible, physical side effects as well. Now, through that means we can control people, but it goes even further than that, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Okay, so a lot of time, a lot of effort invested, as Dave has just said as well. I mean, it takes, it's just too laborious. It's just too hard. What's the easier way? Okay, the easier way is direct brain manipulation. That's the easier way, right? I mean, you can still wear away at everybody through advertising and subliminal messaging, etc., on a daily basis. Schools are still there. But if you want results fast and guaranteed, more or less, you concentrate on influencing the brain directly. And you do that through electromagnetism, for the most part. So, certain frequencies.
Frequencies and microwaves can be beamed at someone's head, for instance. And you can have a person hearing words or music in clarity from a distance, and they don't know where it's coming from. So now that also takes effort. I know that Bill Gates, back in the 80s, he knew about this technology. And if you went to his house, you filled out a questionnaire, and it was, well, what art do you like? What music do you like? And you listed it all. And as you walked around his property, or his house, I think it's inside only.
It was his house, yeah.
Yes. You would hear that music that you liked. No one else could hear it. And the art would be the art that you like to look at.
Yeah, and in fact, it could guide you through the house, to the toilet, back to the dining room, etc., etc.
There you go.
We're talking 90s here. That was in the 90s.
Yeah.
So it could detect you and then respond to you on a very personal level. Of course, all advertising will very soon be just like that. In fact, it's already started on your device, because your device will only show you what you want. So it's like an echo chamber reinforcing itself. Okay?
And in most times, you've actually already bought the product. And the advertising just keeps burning. That's quick. Maybe you want some more. You're right, though. You're right. But
I'll buy some stuff.
I've already
I want again.
Thank you.
Oh, maybe I will. Maybe just this one time.
I'll buy 2 of them. Why not?
So what has been worked on, in my opinion, is a way to. In fact, Solaris talks about this a lot on her show as well, and she's experienced that. She's a great lady. You guys should listen to her. Which is the psychotronic influence, which is the artificial telepathy, the artificial mind control, not natural. I mean, there's natural telepathy and there's electronic telepathy. It's the bad one, the electronic one. But it is done in a way that you don't even know. Let me put it this way: you go to sleep, you wake up, and you're feeling all out of sorts. Maybe you're feeling grumpy and this and that. What if someone was
diary?
I am, but he's onto us.
Talking to you
but,
I think they know.
Right, so watch for it. Code blue. The point. Yeah. No, but what if someone were to, and this is hand in hand with the Havana syndrome.
That's right.
Which, as we've learned over the last few weeks, happened 40 years ago as well in Russia, in Moscow.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and America was working with the same technology.
Yeah. So when Havana syndrome happened, everybody's going, "Oh, what is it?" The same thing happened 30, 40 years ago. What? You don't read your own papers?
No.
No. It's just nuts.
Need to know basis only, Mackie.
That's what happened. And so, what if someone would be able to use a directed energy? Let's call it a weapon, but it's a device. The directed energy device to either blanket an area or have pinpoint accuracy.
That's right.
Right. And that's what we're seeing here. I think a lot of the chronic fatigue, a lot of the even violence, I think the way we, even with kids, I mean, I'll be honest with you, some people are more susceptible than others because we're all individuals. That's why we talk about the spectrum disorders, right?
That's right.
And I think this electromagnetic soup, which in my opinion has been increasing in intensity over the last 30, 40, 50 years even, in my opinion, this is Mackie talk and speculating, has led to an increase in what we like to call ADHD, attention deficit disorders, etc., right? As well as autism. And coupled with other environmental factors. But I think it's the electronic soup that our parasites send out into the ether to control us or to stimulate us or to produce certain outcomes has introduced a variety of unintended consequences on the population. Okay.
Have you noticed, just on that point, have you noticed how different you feel when you go out into the outside of the cell phone range?
Oh, completely.
100%
Absolutely
different. Yeah, that's right.
It's astounding. And look, these days we can still find places like that, right? So that's a good thing. But yeah, I completely agree. It's a very, like, for the most part, this is really gonna sound odd, but I feel a pressure all the time here. Not painful, not painful.
Yeah.
Just a pressure. And it's not my sinuses, because I feel even my sinuses are clear. So and also behind the eyes,
yes,
a slight discomfort, and sometimes it's a lot, and I'm very irritable, and sometimes it's less. But when I do get out of range, especially in forested areas, right?
Yeah, totally. You should come up to my place. It's a beautiful walk, but this is the wrong time of year because it's leeches and mosquitoes. Whether in summer it's just mosquitoes.
Double factor.
That's right. There's a great book about a guy who purchased from a website. He was looking, his Wi-Fi was terrible in his New York apartment because there's the density of apartments in the building is so vast and everyone has Wi-Fi that doesn't matter what channel you're on, it's gonna be awful. Because if everyone is shouting at the same tone, in a room, you can't distinguish between the people. But if everyone's at different frequencies, for instance, then you can actually hear them. You can selectively choose to hear one of those voices, right? So that's how, as humans, we're able to do that. That's natural. But in technology, because you've got such a high density, people will try to find a bit of a slot. There's not very many bands that you can, like maybe 15 bands that it can separate enough for it to be a reasonable experience. But this guy, he's looking for a Wi-Fi repeater because he can't write his book from his little balconette in New York. Must be a nice place. But funny, he goes online. The story's rather quick, right? Goes online, he buys something from military, like not salvage, when they have too much stuff. What is it called? It's like an outlet. You could buy ex-military gear. And
this army disposal store.
Yeah, disposal. That's right. So he goes to the disposal store and he finds this Wi-Fi thing. It's a repeater. And, this will be good. There's no scale to the picture. That's a giveaway to the story. A bit of foreshadowing there. When it arrives, it's about the size of a small bar fridge. It's huge. And has connections that he couldn't connect his Wi-Fi to. He had to have an electronics friend come and hook it up for him. And as soon as he put power on, he could notice that his eyes seemed like they were vibrating.
Oh, wow.
His vision was blurry. He went outside to the little balconette. 100%. 100% Wi-Fi. Not, on a scale. It was just... Suddenly all the Wi-Fi SSIDs within his apartment block started saying, instead of their regular names, can you turn your Wi-Fi off? Now it was drowning all of them out and no one could get a signal.
Wow.
It was crazy. He went across the street to the park and he could still get his Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It was a military Wi-Fi for a base. is what it was. He'd purchased eventually within 24 hours the what their radio controlled whatever it is company government organization triangulated, came around and took it. And they go, "How did you get that?" He goes, "I went to the website." And he goes, "Yeah, but the website has a little tick box. Are you associated with the military?" And he said, "Well, unless I ticked it, I couldn't buy it." So
fair point.
So the funny story about this is he wrote a book about it. But what he did note was all of these odd effects, and that was what I wanted to focus on. So the blurred vision, the unable to really concentrate on anything, really poor sleep, all of those things that we talk about, we associate the same with the RF soup that we're living in. Exactly the same. But he just had it on a scale that was easily noticeable. But not everyone has the same experience in this RF soup that we live in.
That's true.
We all have a different degree. And I certainly
Correct.
know that I feel free when I'm outside of cell range.
Yeah. And Dave, you're right. We're all different. And that's really the key thing to understand. So it's not, and that's why things are being fine-tuned as well as we speak. Mm-hmm. Different things are being thrown out. And that's why, I mean, ask yourself, why do we always upgrade to other things? Right?
Because I want to stand in a line around a block for 3 days to get the new iPhone.
No,
I don't.
Not just devices.
I don't.
Not just devices.
That's right.
Frequencies.
Yes, that's right.
Because we're constantly and consistently exposing ourselves to new frequencies that come on the market, right?
So let's quickly say 2.4 gigahertz was our first Wi-Fi. 5 gigahertz was better Wi-Fi. It's a tighter frequent wavelength, and so it can carry more data. That's why we get more bandwidth out of it. And then 6G, for instance, has 3 different wavelengths, and one of those is like a bat, is mapping the region, the area, and the 92, I think it's kilohertz, or mega, whatever it is, 92 is the highest one, and that's the same as the patent for that energy, the energy weapon that the military have for making your skin feel like it's on fire.
Oh yeah. So
that's 90 to 92.
As Dave has so eloquently pointed out here, with each iteration of the G, like 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G, and then eventually whatever else comes, there's been a frequency change and now an interlacing of frequencies, in fact, right? Yeah. And the thing is this, none of us know what this does to us. We do know...
It's totally harmless, Mickey. That's what I'm
completely.
Put the warning screen up.
we do know what happens when there's solar flares and radiation is released onto us. Right. I mean, that's not good. And you know what radiation does to you. Now, these are different kinds of radiation and different frequencies, but nonetheless, there's almost no radiation that does not have a physical effect. Almost none. Depending, on the frequencies, you could even rupture cells if you really wanted to. But it's a dangerous game, and we don't know because we don't have any real experience with it. So we honestly don't know.
Spectrum up on screen.
Yeah, and as you can see there, it's and we're what we can actually perceive is a very narrow band in that frequency range. But doesn't mean other things aren't affecting us. Clearly, radioactivity can kill you. Clearly, right? Certain things that might be too impossible to detect, like microwaves, they could cook you from the inside out.
That's right.
But you wouldn't know it. You don't know. You can't know it, right?
No, you and because we don't have any sensors inside our body, nope. We only have them on the extremities. Mackie, I just want to highlight once again that the EM spectrum that is on screen, everything above visible light, which includes ultraviolet light, is ionizing radiation. So everything above visible light actually hurts us.
Yeah. So again, thank you. I if something is ionizing, it is not good for us. Okay? It's not a good thing. We don't want it to happen to our bodies. Okay. It's having said all of that though, I wonder. Actually, I want to map this too. Where do the parasites live, and are they living in black spots? Right. the super rich and the actual parasitical creatures. I mean, are they affected by this as much as we are? I'm really curious to find that out. Okay, but I think, yeah, possibly. We got a good chance of finishing this today.
If we start now.
Let's start now. Look, years ago, I was lucky enough to see Dr. Begich speak at maybe even a couple of Nexus conferences in the 90s here in Sydney and Brisbane. And the below text that we're going to share with you is an excerpt from his book on HAARP, which I urge you to read. I think it's now available for free. I think I downloaded it, and the book is called Angels Don't Play This HAARP, right? So why is this important? Well, HAARP, in many ways, was probably the first known foray into widespread mind control, brainwave, or even electromagnetic frequency manipulation across the world, because they used the ionosphere to bounce off of and send signals all around the world from HAARP, which was situated in Alaska. So who's Dr. Nick Begich? He's the eldest son of the late United States Congressman from Alaska, Nick Begich Sr., and political activist Peggy Begich. So he's not an unknown entity. He's well known in Alaska for his own political activities. He was twice elected president of both the Alaska Federation of Teachers and the Anchorage Council of Education. He has been pursuing independent research in the sciences and politics for most of his life. Why don't you share, Dave, with us what it says here in Angels Don't Play This HAARP?
The US government has a new ground-based Star Wars weapon which is being tested in the remote bush country of Alaska. This new system manipulates the environment in a way which can disrupt human mental processes, jam all global communication systems, change weather patterns over large areas, interfere with wildlife migration patterns, negatively affect your health, unnaturally impact the Earth's upper atmosphere. The US military calls it ZAPA HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research. I nearly choked on my lolly. But this Skybuster is not about the Northern Lights. This device will turn on lights never intended to be artificially manipulated. Their first target is the Electrojet, a river of electricity that flows thousands of miles through the sky and down into the polar ice cap. The Electrojet will become a vibrating artificial antenna for sending electromagnetic radiation raining down on the Earth. The US military can then X-ray the Earth and talk to submarines, but there's much more they can do with HAARP. This book reveals surprises from secret meetings, Project Censored. A prestigious panel of journalists judged HAARP to be the top 10 underreported news stories of 1994. Popular Science. As a front cover story, HAARP began to be revealed in September 1995. This book is the rest of that story. High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project is the HAARP that angels don't play.
And again, I urge you all to get to his website. You can just type in Dr. Nick Begich, and the first hit will actually say I'm pretty sure I have downloaded it myself.
Dr. Nick.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, it makes you wonder, right? If it is was he the inspiration? Probably not. No, no. But certainly this is something that I really urge you all to read. It is, yeah, I've got it here. It was free. I've got the whole book downloaded on my hard drive. It was free. It doesn't cost you a thing. From his website. You must read it. Officially, HAARP no longer exists. Officially. But even if the HAARP array, because it was a massive antenna array. I don't know if you're aware of this.
That's right.
Yeah, correct. Now that might have been shut down. I don't know for a fact, but that's what I hear. that doesn't mean that the tech doesn't live somewhere else in some.
Their public statement is that it's not active, but on the ground not active, and in the US not active on the ground, but more than likely either satellites or something else.
Correct. In fact, I would say definitely satellites, and maybe even, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm looking at Starlink, right? So just saying. Which brings us to the last article we're going to share with you all, which is The Last Word, and this is about neuro rights, because we've talked about mind manipulation, mind control, even the complete remodeling of your mind via insidious methods, and then vastly technological methods, and individuals manipulation, as well as massive popular manipulations. So this is the controversial push for new brain and neuro rights, and the article's the author is here Simon Spiczak, and he's a JMIR correspondent. In August 2023, the Supreme Court of Chile issued a unanimous decision ordering the US-based brain computer interface company Emotiv to erase the brain data it had collected on a former Chilean senator. The results of the court case were reported as a landmark decision for neuro rights, enacting the country's recent constitutional provision to protect people's brain data and mental privacy from being sold or manipulated by neurotechnology. That's in Chile.
It doesn't sound like they can't access it. Just that once you get the data,
No.
You can't sell it. No, we're going to monitor everything.
But that's the thing, right? Now, before I go on here, the critical piece of information, even in just the first paragraph here, is that it is now necessary. It is now necessary to take this to a court and get a landmark decision to actually protect your brain, right? Not physically, but the data within it, as well as your mental privacy, which indicates to me that it might be at risk. Of course, we know it is, but this is now officially something that's out there in the ether. Rafael Yuste.
I'm going to put it out there that these devices are doing something.
Oh, I have no doubt. Absolutely. In fact, I wouldn't trust any electronic device anymore. It's just too. The tech is too. It's too pervasive. Rafael Yuste, a co-director of Columbia University's Neurotechnology Center and co-founder of the Neuro Rights Foundation, took part in crafting the provision. The Neuro Rights Foundation is instrumental in the push for new human rights and legislation to protect people's brains from neurotechnology. However, these efforts have proven controversial among scientists, legal scholars, and advocacy groups. Yuste told JMI Publications that some of the criticism is poorly informed and that neuro rights are not adequately covered by existing rights or data privacy legislation. He added that some of the critics may receive funding from the industry. That's a shock. The experts who spoke with JMIR disclosed that they had not received funding from neurotechnology companies, just as an aside here. J. Carlos Lara Galvez, executive director of Derechos Digitales, a non-profit organization based in Chile that advocates for digital rights across Latin America, told JMIR that legal experts in the country are split on the neuro rights provision, with some skeptical that such legal and constitutional changes are needed at all. Daniel Zarora Miralles, a law and technology professor at the University of Chile Law School, explained to JMIR that the constitutional provisions are based on the colonial idea that there were no legal protections for brain data in Chile before this legislation. Dave?
Why are some researchers advocating for neuro rights? Neurotechnology encompasses any device that can directly read, measure, or manipulate brain data. Some invasive forms of neurotechnology, like deep brain stimulation, DBS, are implanted directly into the brain to treat the symptoms of Parkinson's disease, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, and other diseases. These forms of neurotechnology are regulated as medical devices, while consumer-facing devices are largely unregulated in countries like the United States. There's a quote, "I became very concerned with this, Neuro writes, through our own experiments with mice, Joost told JMIR. About a decade ago, we were able to decode the activity of the visual cortex and manipulate it selectively using laser-based technology, unquote. While invasive brain implants or mind-reading devices aren't hitting the consumer market anytime soon, many non-invasive consumer electronics like Muse or Emotive are already on the market. These devices measure electroencephalographic EEG brain data to help measure and potentially improve sleep and mental health. Researchers are also developing mind-controlled drones using consumer-grade EEG headsets. In 2023, Apple also received approval on its patent for AirPod-like earbuds with built-in electrodes that could theoretically measure and collect EEGs. Marcelo Ienca, a professor who studies the ethics of artificial intelligence, AI, and neuroscience at the Technical University of Munich and the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in, Lausanne.
That'll
do. Also believes this raises new problems. The potential for intervening into brain function, either by recording activity from the brain or for writing into the brain using neurostimulation techniques, opens challenges that are substantial from a human rights perspective and can be well understood as human rights challenges, he told JMIR. In response to the development of this technology, Joost and other experts believe that this neuro rights relating to brain data are needed. There's 5 points and I'll hand it to you. Number 1, the right to mental privacy, to prevent neural activity from being deciphered without consent. Number 2, the right to mental identity, to protect against technology altering the self-conscious or personality. Sorry, the self and then consciousness or personality. Number 3, the right to free will. That's funny. To prevent neurotechnology from tampering with decision-making abilities. Number 4, fair access to mental augmentation. Number 5, protection from bias embedded in neurotechnology algorithms. Look, I actually think all 5 of those points are already done for. I think they've already been avoided.
Yeah, look, the one that I find, there's 2 that I find really most disturbing, right? Now, so people always spy on you, so privacy, here. But what worries me is your mental identity and free will.
Mm-hmm.
So the altering of the self consciousness or your personality, right? Mm-hmm. Turning into or making you do something that you never would. And the reason we started this whole show cycle was because of the apparent 180. A lot of the members of the Trump administration have undertaken since last year.
Yeah, mostly Democrats who are now Republicans.
Just, I mean,
yeah, 100%.
I mean, J.D. Vance is probably the best example. He said Trump was America's Hitler. I'm not saying it. He said that. I'm just quoting.
Yeah.
And I thought, and then now he's the vice president, and he couldn't. His nose couldn't be any browner. But I find it astounding, right? So no, but it did raise it made me wonder, and it raised questions, right? So I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm saying, well, or is it, right?
There's a song, Mickey, that says, "I did a full 180, crazy, thinking about the way I was." So that's someone who's already done the 180.
Yeah,
realized it. Yeah. From that perspective, and the other one is the remake of RoboCop, where
I didn't watch it.
Oh, there's the same 2 points that you say. It's the right to mental identity, and all that's left is the brain, and they've got a robot, skeleton around the outside of this brain. And the other one is the right to free will, and they turn down the free will and turn up the AI. Yeah, that's right. It's like, Itchy and Scratchy when he goes, I want a rusty chainsaw. He goes, no, he goes rustier, and he puts the rusty sound up. Exactly the same thing. But the people doing the sliding, the director, he says, I want him to still think that he's making the choices.
Mm.
And I think that says a lot about where we're at today.
Oh, look, I think that's exactly where we're galloping toward that future. We are. Other experts are more skeptical, going back to the test of neural rights. While there's, and I'm quoting here, while there is rough consensus on the potential risks of certain technologies that interact with the human body or the brain, there is no consensus on the notion that those risks are certain or well-defined. Trust me, if there's a risk, we should look at it. That those risks are current and actual instead of potential and speculative, Galvez said.
Speculative.
Some of the most publicly visible support comes accompanied by highly exaggerated claims about the capabilities of these technologies. I think we can certainly say with some degree of surety as to who pays his bills.
Mm-hmm.
Galvez is concerned that the debate of neural rights or on neural rights displaces attention and discussion from other fundamental rights and data protection regulations. I don't think there's anything more fundamental than your brain or your identity. I don't think there's everything else comes from it. Everything arises, even in quantum physics. We now think that thought is the smallest unit of existence, whatever. But this is if that goes away, if we get this wrong, nothing else matters.
That's right.
If this is torpedoed and all of a sudden all our brains will turn into mush and switchboards for the parasites, might as well go home. Thank you very much. So are new human rights needed to protect the brain? The answer for me would be absolutely yes. The Neural Rights Foundation analyzed 7 existing international human rights treaties and determined that they included insufficient protections for brain data, concluding that amendments or new rights were needed to protect brain data. It's not very good writing, is it?
No.
Nita Farahany, a legal scholar and bioscience professor at Duke University who wrote The Battle for Your Brain, also thinks that new rights are needed. She argues for a broader approach through the lens of cognitive liberty. That's a new term, cognitive liberty. My tattoo on my arm, which would protect self-determination, freedom of thought, and mental privacy. Farahany told JMIR that cognitive liberty could provide broad protections against technologies that can predict cognitive states, even if they don't directly measure neural data. And I'm quoting here, if the biometric data is being used to make inferences about a person's mental state, it deserves a high level of protection, she said. Yenka told JMIR that he's agnostic about the right approach to protecting these rights, whether reinterpreting existing rights or introducing new ones. Several legal experts told JMIR they don't think this new framework is needed. I wonder who pays their bills. Susie Allegre, a human rights lawyer, author of the book Freedom to Think, and a senior fellow at the Center for International Governance Innovation, told JMIR that adding new rights or amending existing ones doesn't make sense. And I'm quoting, the big problem is that when you say we need new rights, then you're firstly saying the rights we have don't cover this, and therefore it's a kind of a free pass, she said. Again, she goes on, fundamentally, I don't understand advocating for new rights without testing the boundaries of existing rights in court. J. Christoph Bublitz, Associate Junior Professor of Criminal Law at the University of Hamburg, Bublitz, okay, also argued against the proposal of new rights in a 2022 paper in the journal Neuroethics. And I'm quoting, the proposal tends to promote rights inflationism, is tainted by neuroexceptionalism and neuroessentialism, and lacks grounding in relevant scholarship, he argued. Just throw a few big words in and people will get lost in the garbage.
Yeah, sure.
In 2022, the UN Human Rights Council asked its advisory committee to study the issue. Liz Throssell, a spokesperson from the UN Human Rights Office, said that the existing human rights framework does address the issues related to privacy and autonomy. Throssell told JMR that there may be emerging issues outside the scope of legislation, but these will require further discussion. And I'm quoting, "But the bottom line is that huge and potentially very consequential work needs to be done now in ensuring existing human rights standards are applied," Throssell said, explaining that adding or amending human rights takes a lot of time. "What is important is that we focus on implementing the human rights standards that we have at our disposal," she concludes. Dave?
And I'm still astounded. Legislating neuro rights around the world. The Neuro Rights Foundation recently surveyed 30 user agreements from direct-to-consumer neurotechnology companies. Clicking "I agree" on 29 of these agreements would give the neurotechnology company any rights to the data which would allow them to sell it to a third party. Used called these user agreements predatory. Quote, "There are no rules. The company is taking everything," he said. And it continues, "That's why we're working with many countries and international organizations to protect brain data. Ultimately, he believes that brain data should be protected as stringently as medical data." Following the constitutional provisions in Chile, which Just and the Neuro Rights Foundation helped influence, other countries like Uruguay, Brazil, and Mexico have all either proposed or pushed through constitutional amendments that would provide similar protections. However, experts, including Morales, say these provisions are unnecessary as the constitutional protections in Latin America sufficiently encompass brain data and can restrict the use of medical neurotechnologies because of how the law is written. Morales and Pablo Contreras, a law professor at the Central University of Chile, argued that the neuro rights provision was irrelevant to the emotive case, arguing that the company deleted the data in conjunction with existing data protection laws. Quote, "Most constitutions on the continent recognize the right to privacy, and almost all countries have laws on personal data protection inspired by the GDPR, she says. Needless to say," she goes on, "the entire hypothesis of this legislation is based on a science fiction fantasy idea."
Oh.
Yeah, so you call it something, you've boxed it there, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Galvez told JMIR that there were concerns the constitutional provisions led to altering the functions of public health authorities and the application of data protection law, introducing confusion to the legal landscape. Meanwhile, in the United States, the Neuro Rights Foundation also worked alongside the Colorado Medical Society to sponsor Bill HB 24-1058 to protect brain activity and brain data. Other states have enacted broader laws to protect other types of biometric data that technology companies collect. Illinois Biometric Information Privacy Act, for example, requires private entities collecting biometric data to inform people about what kind of data is being collected, how it's stored, and how it's used, not how it's sold. I think that's a good start. But I would go further than it does, Farah Heinig said, adding the cognitive biometric data should, for example, be kept on the device where it is collected and not sent to any external company. In the European Union, Allegre, that'll do, yes, explained that there are already laws and regulations protecting people's data from exploitation, but the problem involves enforcing and regulating these rules, and adding the biggest problem is at the very heart. It's at its very hard to take tech. It's a very hard thing to take a tech company to court. Mackie, I wanted to say, I remember seeing a news story where there was a witness. It was fictional. A witness being asked questions, and they had the ability to show imagery about what the person was thinking in their brain up on a screen. This was a fictional setup, but advertising the technology that's available right now, and it was probably a decade ago.
So to be clear, right, MRI as well as other technologies have allowed us to scan our bodies, including the brain, in hitherto unprecedented detail, right? As well as mapping brain waves, etc. And the research that's gone on that links or connects your brain wave activity with certain things, such as visualization of things or the retrieval of memory or whatever the case may be, has now put us in a place where the visual representation of our thoughts is no longer a pipe dream. Okay, we can, with some degree of accuracy, map the neural activity to a visual output, right? I mean, there's other things going on. It's not perfect either, but I've seen examples in a non-fictional environment of this being done in lab rats, even in lab animals. It's fascinating stuff. It's terrifying stuff. I mean, all of a sudden your thoughts become like visible on a TV screen. See, is this invasive viewing of your thoughts? I don't find as terrifying as the manipulation, the altering, maybe even the complete rewriting of your brain. I mean, ultimately, you have to ask yourself this, and I've asked this before, and we finished on the text, everybody, so thank you, Dave. That's awesome. But at what point do you stop being you? Right? We discussed this many times before. There's a great story by Asimov, the 200-year-old, I think, or the 200th anniversary, where a robot wants to become human. In its final act, it becomes mortal, right? Because it was denied human rights until it decided that, I like all other humans, will also die. But the robot, who had developed human-like characteristics, wanted to become human, and therefore decided that the only way to do that is to become mortal, himself, as he identified as a male.
Boy.
That's right. That's what happened. And you have to ask yourself, that's okay. That's from the robot's perspective, because he started replacing most of his cybernetic componentry with biology. Like essentially, he got organs and flesh and skin, etc., except for his brain, which is positronic. And as Asimov, called the robot brain, a positonic brain. Now, reverse it for us. At what point do we stop becoming human? Right, and then I will make you understand why I'm saying this at this point. So if you lose an arm and a leg, and 2 arms and a leg, and it's replaced maybe by robot parts, spare parts as we can these days, and maybe your hearts, your lungs have to be replaced with machines, and it gets to the point where most of your body is replaced by something, constructed, something artificial, but your head is intact, and then something happens to your head, but your brain is still intact. Right, your brain is still in its original state, if you will, like flesh and blood kind of thing, except now housed within a construct, or some kind of robotics or cybernetic construct. Are you still you? And I would argue that essentially, yes, I think you are still you. I mean, your outlook on life might have changed, right? You might approach things differently, and your relationships would have changed, etc., a whole bunch of things would have changed. But fundamentally, because your brain is still you, maybe even with the spinal cord still attached and the autonomous nervous system still intact in your body through some miracle of technology, you could argue that it is still you, right? But what this technology here does fundamentally will take that away from you. You will no longer be you, right? Even if nothing in your physical body changes, your mind, your memories, your brain data, as they call it euphemistically, is no longer yours. Yeah, it's now been taken away and maybe replaced by something else, right? And this is the first step to completely destroying a human being. Okay. No, I'm not talking about the soul here, or or Ka or Chi or whatever, because it's a fairly hard concept to prove either way. But this could destroy you as an individual, and that people would argue that we don't need this, especially enshrined in rights. I know the news coming. I find this ludicrous. I think we should absolutely have laws that protect us. Anyway, that's the end of mind control.
I just thought I would want to make my own decisions, but maybe I'm wrong. This has been Shiny Side Out. This is Mind Control. This is the conclusion of it. We'll see you next week for another Shiny Side Out, and also 7 a.m. Tuesday and Thursday morning for Plato's Cave. Join us for breakfast.